Hi, it's Maddie with the Innocence topic, and today we're going to be talking about the important facts surrounding the Innocence Project, statistics, the creation, and an interview from Barry Scheck, the founder. So, the Innocence Project has been working for nearly 30 years, or 3 decades, which seems like a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, that's really only about twice the amount of years that the average person has spent behind bars wrongfully convicted, which is 16 years. So today we are going to look at the statistics of the Innocence Project and then an interview of Barry Scheck, one of the founders of the organization. At this moment, November 2023, 245 people have been exonerated by the Innocence Project, with a collective of 3,826 years of time served behind bars wrongfully incarcerated. Of those 245 exonerees, 199 were exonerated by DNA. Throughout this, I've mentioned that DNA exoneration is kind of their thing. Like, their main way of picking cases from the tens of thousands of requests for help is the availability of DNA, and they prefer to use DNA as the purpose of exoneration or the main piece of evidence used for exoneration. But if you saw my last episode, Christopher Tapp's wrongfully incarceration is an example of a person who could not be freed even though DNA ruled them out as the perpetrator. Notably, the judge on the case said the DNA may help find the assailant, but it does not prove the innocence of Christopher, which is odd to hear in an innocent until proven guilty system. But at that point, Christopher had already been proven guilty. This is just to mention that despite DNA evidence being the main factor of them choosing to work on the case, the existence of DNA evidence isn't always useful, which is why 46 cases were not exonerated by DNA. In Christopher's case, proof of coercion of confession is what released him, and the confession of the actual perpetrator is what cleared him. The average age when wrongfully convicted is 27. The average age of exoneration is 44. These people who were, by all intents and purposes, fucked by the system, left behind their family, lost friends, were unable to progress in their careers and life, and will, for the rest of their lives, be first known for a crime they did not commit and suffered from. Of the 245 people, around 5% pled guilty. 64% involved eyewitness misidentification, 18% involved informants, 27% involved false confessions, and 52% involved misapplied forensic science. I'm bringing these statistics to the table to show just how many things can go wrong altogether to destroy someone's life in the American judicial system. A suspect hears there's a witness who identified them, that there's evidence, forensic evidence, specifically against them, and they confess, thinking they might be able to get a lighter sentence. And with American society being set up in a very racially segregated way, stemming from chattel slavery, Jim Crow, and redlining, that heavily bleeds into the justice system today. Of those wrongfully convicted, 58% are black, 34% are white, 7% are Latinx, and 2% classified as other, including Native American or Asian American. This is not an issue that the Innocence Project can take on themselves. It's too broad of an issue that many systems would have to be involved with. But they do tackle these singular injustices one at a time. Over the years, they have received over 65,000 letters requesting assistance navigating the justice system. With that, they freed 245 people. And with each case, they spend about $5,000 to $15,000 to do these DNA tests. It shouldn't be up to private organizations to find the path for freedom for so many. But the Innocence Project, more importantly, Barry Scheck and Peter Newfield, have taken on the responsibility that they should have never needed to. The interview of Barry Scheck that I mentioned earlier first began with accolades of the organization, much being ones I just spoke on. But the Innocence Project has also worked with policy making higher standards for DNA testing, eyewitness identification, interrogations, and pattern evidence. Pattern evidence is the result of patterns from physical imprints on objects or surfaces. This includes fingerprints, ballistics, handwriting, shoe prints, or tire marks. All of these are types of evidence that have been used and argued against in court for various reasons. The issues with these kinds of evidence is what's more subjective than objective. While tire marks can match to specific vehicles or tires on vehicles, handwriting is very, very broad and can't be tied to a specific person, which becomes the issue when we're trying to convict someone of a crime that will leave them behind bars for decades. Barry Scheck begins by talking about how he got the position at the Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law. At the time, it was a new school, and a friend or colleague of his recommended him for the position. While there, of course, he had been reached out to by the Legal Aid Society with Newfield to work on the case of Marion Coakley. Barry Scheck said, "So the clinic and I took the case, and I brought Peter in to work with us because we knew from the beginning this would be a very big deal. because we knew that A, getting an innocent person out of jail was a very big deal, and B, Bob Shaler, who was an administrator at the Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law, told us that they were going to try DNA testing in this case, and it had never been introduced in the American court. He explains the groundbreaking case that was the base for the organization that freed hundreds. Of course, RFLP testing, which was so new, Scheck said he didn't know if the law clinic would be okay using the new, relatively unknown and unresearched technology. On top of that, the forensic science used by the prosecution was incredibly contaminated. The importance of this is that this is where Scheck and Newfield became well-versed in molecular biology and population genetics, knowledge they needed for the larger picture, the Innocence Project.